Rick Neuheisel walked in and looked like he was going to go for his wallet because he thought we were unemployed. he was surprised.
I am so impressed.
How about this?
Digs.
How about
this is you guys have really stepped up your game.
Yeah.
I mean, this is awesome.
I did appreciate you reaching for your wallet. You were going to give us lunch money today.
Well, I know I was investment money. As I see this direction of this
seed
new
money,
deal.
right?
Yes.
This was seed money.
Yeah, obviously I was not. No one leaned on me to see if I'd be interested, but that's okay.
Hey, speaking of money, so
yesterday's news.
You play at these uppity golf courses out on the Pacific Coast.
I'm America's guest. Yes.
So I just want to ask you though, behind the scenes, you've seen some big money games, right?
Yes, I have.
What is the
Jordan? Michael Jordan is the one that can take anybody down and make them not know that they're exhaling. He's the one who has the satchel in his bag that I don't care who you are, it's going to get your attention as to what you're playing for.
What Lance doesn't know is Jordan built his own course. Have you played it?
I have not.
Okay, so Jordan built his own. It's pretty exclusive.
Yeah,
I mean, I was going to be impressed if you said yes. He built his own course down in Jupiter and built it so the holes at the end favor his game. Just so if he's down, he knows that coming to the house,
he has a way to up the ante.
That's right.
At any portion of the game with this satchel that is always in his bag that you will look at your putts from both sides.
Can you remember, though, one celebrity or just anybody in general, one putt for the most amount of money and everyone around just in awe of what was going on and almost uncomfortable because it came down to that?
It was Mickelson and Jordan. They were playing at Whisper Rock out in Arizona, and Phil, I think, was giving Michael a stroke a hole. But the money got up where people were hearing about it inside the club and driving out to watch, and it was wild.
Who ultimately won that one?
I didn't stay for the completion of it, but I was there to witness, and they were laughing. They were, neither one of them was really nervous about it, but almost everybody that was watching was nervous that this was ridiculous cash.
I'll tell you who did not win was the IRS.
And there was cash, yeah, it was cash.
That's crazy.
How's your game right now?
It's as good as it's going to be. I'm a 0.6 index. I just played at Riviera. I can't hit it far anymore. Actually, I could never hit it far, let's be honest. But I can hit it straight, and then I can get it up and down. I don't have great iron play, but I can get it up and down, and I love to play. And as a fired football coach, I'm the commissioner of the Fired Football Coaches Golf Association.
That's right.
So I get lots of games. I get lots of guys to let's go play, and there's no better game. And the pandemic has been unbelievable for golf. I mean, golf courses are up 30, 40, 50% in terms of the rounds played over the pandemic because it's basically social distancing with some sticks, right? You get to do it, and so I have met so many good guys in the last year and a half that I would never have played with, but for that everybody's coming to play now because that's really all we could do. Everybody was working from home, so it's been kind of a wonderful year for golf, and for those of us who love golf, it's been a great year to meet a bunch of new guys.
Coach Rick Neuheisel is with us. You'll see him on CBS, hear him on Sirius XM Radio. So let's talk some football. Can you make a confident case for Texas A&M over Alabama in the West?
No. And listen, it's not because I'm not a believer in what Jimbo does. I think Jimbo has to land some wide receiver play. I think he has leaned, and he's done so in a genius fashion, on his running backs and his tight ends in what we call a mini field, okay? Or at least I used to call a mini field. All that stuff that's, inside the hash marks, inside, playing off Mike and Sam and Will, those three linebackers, and just playing 3-on-3 in that little area. And, I mean, Aeneas is it Aeneas Smith?
Aeneas Smith, yeah.
Aeneas Smith has been a genius running back, kind of slot receiver. Spiller has been terrific as the runner, and Weidermeyer is, obviously a really good tight end. He's made his living in there. I think Alabama can stop that. I think people are going to start, especially with a new quarterback now in tow, that you're going to end up believing that I can kind of add a fourth defender and play 4-over-3 on those guys, because I don't know that anybody outside is going to challenge us. And LSU plays them with those two corners. I know they can gang up on that world. So that to me, and losing 4 offensive linemen for A&M, I'm still a little suspect on the running game. So I'm just going to bet on Nick Saban and the reloading that we've seen over and over and over again, even though we may not be conversant with the names that are going to be playing in those uniforms. I think we can be pretty confident that they're going to be really talented.
As a guy who draws up plays as good as anybody, back when you were actually coaching before you were a fired football coach, how are they able in Tuscaloosa to change offensive coordinator time and time again, and nobody be worried about that? Because nobody's worried about Bill O'Brien coming in as offensive coordinator.
Yesterday Dan Mullen walked in to the SEC Media Days, and I called him a chameleon, right? Because he has the ability to change what he does offensively based on his skill set, right? Whoever he's got around him. Last year was a flamboyant throwing attack. Kyle Trask was a drop-back guy. Kyle Pitts was a genius tight end. You had Kadarius Toney working over that little medium field that we just talked about, and you had a couple of good weapons outside when you got one-on-one, and you could throw it down the field and make a play. And he did it over and over again. I mean, the guy averaged 400 yards. That SEC championship game was one for the ages, and Trask was part of that show. Now he's got Emory Jones. He's going to go back to doing what he did with Nick Fitzgerald, what he's doing with Tim Tebow, even when he was in the coordinator role at Florida. He's going to go back to early Dak Prescott and use those legs to force single high coverage, to force, a more balanced attack, which will help their defense. So when I call him a chameleon, Nick Saban's the same. He's a chameleon. He doesn't do it, but the new faces that come in are already, he's looking at them as who's the next guy to fit the skill set that he already has. I mean, Steve Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin are often paired together in terms of their offensive mindset because they were both Pete Carroll guys. They're really different in terms of how Lane does offense and how Sark does offense. Sark was, a play-action guy. He had this ability to throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage. I don't know if you guys saw that statistic. I think Alabama's average time of the quarterback held the ball before he threw it was at 2.55 seconds last year.
Wow.
In juxtapose that against, I think, 2017, where it was well over 3. Okay, so they learned, we got these, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, we're going to throw these balls out in the flat and let them run, right? That will be the thing to watch, getting off topic, but that'll be the thing to watch about Sark at Texas. Does he have a guy that he can get that throw to and steal those yards? I don't think he does. And that will be the frustration for the Texas offense as compared to what he had with this monster offense here at Alabama. Kiffin was more, I'm dialing up for a big shot. This is why he can put his hands up in the air as Amari Cooper's going in motion, right? Because he knows he got exactly what he was predicting he would get in the coverage, and he knows his quarterback's looking for that shot. So he's got what he wants, and if it's not there, he's going to check it down. It isn't a full field read under Lane Kiffin's deal. Now, it may be different a little bit now with Matt Corral. I'm curious to watch. But to me, the chameleon of Saban is I'm going to lean on what my resources are, and Bill O'Brien comes from the Deshaun Watson offense, so we're going to see if Bryce Young is going to be more of a dual threat. Will his legs be incorporated into this thing? I have to believe they will be, and that will be completely different than the Mac Jones offense. Yep.
We're coming off a year where Alabama averaged 49 points against 10 SEC teams,
I know it.
Notre Dame, and Ohio State. As a former quarterback and offensive coordinator, would it be more fun to play in an offense like that or call an offense like that?
Great question. Obviously, it would have been fun to do either. It was a brilliant devised scheme that highlighted the skill set of Mac Jones. Great accuracy down the field. Much less.
Do you think he's going to be good in the next level?
I don't think he's going to be Tom Brady. I don't think he's that. But maybe he will be. Maybe the cerebral portion of the game we don't know yet. I don't think he had the same kind of tools at his discretion to change plays like Burrow did at LSU the year before. But he didn't need to because the dictate was already in. When you have Najee Harris behind you and that those 7 blocks of granite up in front, they have to stop Najee Harris. They have to, and in so doing, they're going to do one of two things. They're going to play single high, which is the easiest one-on-one reads you can get outside, and you got Waddle and Smith. That's a win, right? Or they're going to play quarters where they're going to read the offensive line. It's a run. The quarter safety will come down. But anything that where your number 2 receiver, counting from outside in, goes vertical, you're one-on-one outside. And those were easy reads, and the guy threw the ball beautifully down the field. That won't be available in the NFL. Those one-on-one throws and the catch-up speed of the corners are going to be equal to the wide receivers. It'll be interesting to see if he gets all that same stuff. But Burrow, I was quick to say, will be a star in the NFL because of what he was gleaning from the opposite side of the ball. I mean, his dad was a defensive coordinator, right, for the Ohio Bobcats for Frank Solich. And so he knew everything was going on. He knew the tells like a poker player knows the cards. And so he was able to manipulate what was in. He was given the license to manipulate the call and get the ball to Chase into the boundary, Jefferson over the slot, Edwards-Helaire, out of the backfield. That was brilliant. Alabama had all the same weapons, but it was predetermined by Sark.
Coach Rick Neuheisel is with us from CBS Sirius XM. What is the biggest challenge for Brian Harsin taking a job? I mean, he's coming from a different part of the country, has no contacts down here. He's done a good job hiring contacts down here with Mike Bobo and Derek Mason and those guys. But what's the toughest part for him?
Blocking out the noise.
Yeah.
Blocking out the noise, because that job is one of the most difficult in sport because the expectations are not so much on what's possible there. It's the expectations are what's going on at Alabama, and we've got to one-up them. Gus Malzahn was as successful as anybody in the world at beating Nick Saban. But it wasn't enough because Saban could also beat him given what was going on at Alabama and the talent that continually rolls through Tuscaloosa. I mean, it's just so to block out the noise and the distractions of, hey, you're not keeping up with this is going to be paramount for him. He's obviously a good football coach. He's got 2 good coordinators that are SEC tested. Derek Mason, obviously from Vanderbilt, and Mike Bobo from the Georgia, and then not last year the experience in South Carolina. Those guys know the SEC. He'll lean on that, and then it comes down to just recruiting his tail off. I mean, ultimately, that's going to be what he's judged on. Be interesting to see how all that works out.
I didn't coach football, but I feel like Mike Bobo's system, the way he likes to coach football, fits the way Bo Nix was raised with his dad Patrick and what Bo does better. Is that a fair statement? Do you see it that way at all?
I did the Colorado State-Oregon State game when Mike was still the head coach at Colorado State a few years back for CBS Sports Network. And I remember studying the film going, there's a lot of good stuff here. A lot of, interesting conceptual things that basically were 2-man routes, but it was X and the tailback who were free releasing and working on that portion of the read as opposed to the strong side of the stuff. And so I think Mike Bobo has the acumen and the offense to be really good. It didn't materialize. As a matter of fact, they even brought his quarterback from Colorado State to South Carolina so that they could have a jump start. It didn't materialize. I don't know if that's because they weren't good enough, if the SEC defenses are better and can jump things, more so than what was the case in the Mountain West. We're going to find out. But Bo Nix, now this will be his 3rd coordinator in 3 years for him. He's going to have to really, really trust the system because Bo Nix has proven to be inconsistent when he goes off schedule. When he goes off schedule, there's some great stuff that happens, but there's some stuff that gets you beat too. And that's going to be the tail of the tape for Bo Nix as a quarterback when you're starting to look at the greats in Auburn history.
You've made a lot of good friends in the Birmingham area over the last 20 years. And I've heard your name attached to, way back in the day, the next Alabama offensive coordinator and UAB's next head coach and Ole Miss's next head coach. What is the best job you never took?
Notre Dame. I had a chance to go to Notre Dame. I was still at Washington. Things were going well at Washington. And when I left Colorado, there was some acrimony, as is always when you're leaving a program and things are good. We had a recruiting class that was to beat the band, and so there were some people disgruntled that I left. And then Gary Barnett came in and was trying to keep the recruits that we had. And some of those guys wanted to follow me to Washington, and so there was some acrimony between the two coaches as to who had the right to the kids and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't really want to go through that again, and things were going well at Washington. So I turned down Notre Dame. But I think when you're that close to a job that is, considered, one of the grails, if there is such a thing in college football, you wonder what would have happened. I'm not disappointed that I didn't take the job. I would have loved to have found out what would have happened had I guess is the way to say it.
Yeah. You don't get that shot often, do you?
Yeah, I mean, when they came with the suitcase of, Rudy paraphernalia, I mean, my kids are all running around with their helmets, and there's, 15 Rudy DVDs, and, I mean, it was kind of cool. I remember standing outside with the, I think his Father Malloy, and we were standing out looking. I had a house that was on the water there in Seattle. It's a beautiful home. And he goes, we don't have a lake quite this big in South Bend. I said, are you trying to talk me into it or talk me out of it?
That was not a sales pitch.
And he said, I just want you to know what you're walking into. And I said, oh, I'm well aware if you go to Notre Dame what you're walking into. It is, it's every day and all day. But I was at an age where I was really excited. But as is always the case, and this is what's going on with Matt Campbell right now at Iowa State, you get to a place where you're comfortable and you start thinking about family. Because I had 3 young boys. Do I want to uproot them? Is this all about me? And your wife is, went through. We don't, as coaches, even think about what our wives go through when you leave, and all of a sudden there's negative energy at you from people that you thought were your friends and all that stuff. It was just the wrong timing. So I just didn't do it. And that's why Matt Campbell's staying at Iowa State right now. Turned down the New York Jets, for gosh sakes. I mean, if you're thinking as a kid, or you want to be at Iowa State or the New York Jets, but all of a sudden these family things happen, and you're like, you know what? I'm good right now.
And they're paying like $4 million in Ames now, so college football money
and you
has
can't
gotten
spend
insane.
$4 million in Ames.
It would seem
Probably
tough.
not.
I would agree.
Very tough.
So I want to ask you this. I'm a huge Rams fan, so I'm very excited about the Matthew Stafford era starting. But John Wolford, that is your last starting quarterback, right?
Yeah.
And I was really excited
Wolford.
what he was able to do in the season finale against the Cardinals, and then he gets to start in the wild card game against the Seahawks, and he's moving the ball, and he gets hurt on that first possession. And I just wanted to see him finish that game. And, the Rams go on and they win that game, and they did it with defense. But John Wolford, the guy, the quarterback, do you think he's got another chapter in the NFL?
I don't think there's any question. When Phil Savage, Phil.
Yep.
Phil used to call the Crimson Tide games here right in town, and longtime Alabama fan and close to the program, close to Coach Saban. Phil was the GM of the Arizona Hotshot team, and I said when they asked me if I wanted to coach, Bill Polian asked me if I wanted to coach. I said yeah, but I want Phil Savage to be the GM because I knew he and I would collaborate well, and it was just that we had a great time. And I told him that I wanted John Wolford because we were going to draft quarterbacks in that league. A lot of it was going to be regionalized and so forth, but quarterbacks were going to be part of a draft choice. And I had seen Wolford. My son had been a GA for Kevin Sumlin at Texas A&M, and I had watched, I think it was the Belk Bowl, right? It was Wake Forest and Texas A&M in the Belk Bowl. And Wolford was just relentless. I mean, he threw the ball beautifully. He was a warrior. He was diving for first downs. It was like a 59-58 game or something like that. And I just said, that kid can play. I mean, I just made my mental note. Now all of a sudden I'm being asked to coach. Wolford's in investment banking someplace. and I said, let's draft him. Well, Trevor Knight was also on this board, and Phil liked Trevor. And there's nothing not to like about Trevor. He's a wonderful human being. And he said, we're going to take Trevor. And I said, Phil, you go ahead and take Trevor the first pick. But if you don't get Wolford, I'm going to be so angry because that's the guy. And Wolford, literally within 2 days of training camp, it was Wolford. I mean, It was obvious. And that's why it was obvious to the Rams when he got there. When you look at him, you think you're looking at Alfred E. Newman. I mean, it's like this guy can't play. There's no way that package is an NFL quarterback. But then you get in his mind and you see what he sees. And, I mean, you never have to have a blackboard when you're talking quarterbacking with John Wolford. You can sit and have a conversation and keep track of all 22 guys just like you can with Joe Burrow. I had that conversation when I was interviewing for CBS. And he knows exactly where everybody is, and he knows the nuance of where to throw the ball. He can say, I would throw that a back shoulder, and no one has shown any video or on a blackboard. You're just keeping track of everybody. He's that cerebral as he sees the field. And so calling plays for him was a joy because we could make changes. I mean, on-the-spot changes where I could scream, and there was no one in the stands, so I could scream at him and say, hey, double, which is double the move to the weak side receiver, and all of a sudden there it was, boom, we hitting it, and we'd laugh at each other, and it was a joy. And he's going to have another year with the Rams. I'm assuming, let's hope that Matthew Stafford stays healthy and he doesn't have to play, right? But then he's going to have probably another contract that hopefully will net him somewhere around $12 million over the next 3 years. And if that's all it is, he'll have made somewhere around $20 million because he came and played for the Arizona Hotshots.
That's crazy.
It's fantastic.
Wow. I mean, what a cool deal.
It's all about you.
Well, it wasn't about me.
Yeah.
It was about him. But we collaborated well, and Alfred E. Newman's doing just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're a teenager growing up in Alabama, and we're on the opposite side of the USC-UCLA rivalry. He wears USC gear, and I own more UCLA stuff than I do Alabama stuff. But that seemed like heaven as a teenager, watching those UCLA cheerleaders and the sun setting out there. How does UCLA football get back? What has to happen to get them back into the conversation a little bit more?
I always hesitate to answer this question because it sounds like spilt milk, right? That I'm complaining as to why I was unsuccessful there. I went 21-29 there. And before, it was a 70% winning percentage at the two places I was before. But there weren't a lot of, NFL-type players on the roster. And they had done that to themselves. They had made the admission standards stricter. They had, in terms of the days when I was there, when UCLA was winning 8 straight bowl games and I was an assistant for Terry, they made the admission deal stronger, more difficult to get in. And relative to the competition, which was seeing everybody else in terms of facility upgrades, they hadn't kept up. They just hadn't. And it's and I don't blame anybody, but in the world of college athletics right now, conference affiliation entitles programs to take money from television revenue that's big money, right? I mean, I think the SEC just got $43 million check despite the fact there was nobody in the stands.
Yes.
$43 million a school, right? Larry Templeton was just telling me that was bigger than in 2008 his entire budget at Mississippi State.
Wow.
2008.
Yeah.
$43 million from television revenue each school got. Pac-12 is off of that number. Let's just say it's 30, and it might be north of 30, but let's just say it's $30 million. Well, you have a choice as what to do with that 30. You can go and make sure that everybody's got nice stuff. Your athletic department personnel can proliferate. You can get everybody handsomely compensated and run a clean business. Or you can take $30 million and say, okay, we need to go get nutrition taken care of for football. We need to have the same indoor facility that our opponents have when these recruits are making their checklist of what they want to have when they make their decisions as to go to school. The commitment at UCLA, and it's my school, my son's coaching there. I bleed for blue and gold. I never had so much fun watching them in the Final Four last year, right? In the big games with Gonzaga and all the way they got there. But they have not made that wholesale commitment that needs to be made if you're going to keep up with Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, and on down the list. They have not. And until they do, they're kidding themselves that they're going to be in this race. And the truth of the matter is the Pac-12 has to look at themselves in the mirror and say, are any of our programs willing to do that? That's why Bryce Young comes from California to Alabama. DJ Uiagalelei, the quarterback at Clemson, comes from Los Angeles. C.J. Stroud, the quarterback that's probably the heir apparent to at Ohio State, comes from Rancho Cucamonga, California. Jack Miller, the guy who's battling him to try to be the starter there, is from Scottsdale, Arizona. Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma. I mean, he's going to be a star. He's picked the odds-on favorite for the Heisman Trophy, Phoenix, Arizona. they're all coming from the Pac-12 footprint, and yet they're leaving because Pac-12 hasn't been to the college football playoff but 2 times, lost both. Well, actually, Oregon won that opening game against Florida State, but then lost in the national championship. There has to be, and this is George Kliavkoff's challenge, there has to be a more emphasis on football on the West Coast to be commensurate with the emphasis that is here on football. Sometimes you'll get the people on the West Coast talking is that's heresy. We've lost our mind. Our moral compass has gone awry, and I call nonsense. Football's the front porch. Football goes. We'll get people back in the stands. We'll get people to stay. JT Tuimalau, this great defensive end, doesn't have to go to Ohio State and go right there to the University of Washington like he used to when Don James was coaching.
Right.
That's what has to happen for the Pac-12, and that's what the leadership has to come to grips with if they want to play for the big prizes.
You mentioned Bruin basketball. Did John Wooden ever watch you play football?
Yes, he did. And my first game, I still have the note. In my locker, we were playing Tennessee. Philip Fulmer's last year at Tennessee. And we're big underdogs, but we find a way to win in overtime. Okay. In my locker prior to the game and in John Wooden's handwritten note, there'll be peaks and there'll be valleys. But the true Bruin fans will be with you all the way. Best of luck, Coach.
Wow.
Okay?
That's incredible.
Coach. So I've got this note. We win that night. We come from behind. My quarterback throws Kevin Kraft threw 4 interceptions in the first half. And I got him up in front of everybody at halftime. I said, he's got him out of his system. There is no way he's going to throw 5. Everybody started laughing. He started laughing. I mean, he was, so nervous. And I said, you're good. You're good. You're going to be fine. And by the way, guys, I'm the luckiest guy in the world because, number 1, I'm here. And number 2, we're going to find a way to win. We're going to find a way to win this game. We went out, won it in overtime. They're all like, gosh, you said so. The very next game, we played BYU in Provo and got beat 59-0. So when John Wooden said there would be peaks and valleys, he was never more prophetic.
That is Coach Rick Neuheisel, CBS, Sirius XM. Coach, thank you for the time. Always fun.
It's my pleasure, guys. I like your digs. Congratulations on your venture, and best of luck.